All right, you guys ready? I only see two people in their pod. So let's see. I see three. So we are just missing Lupe. Lupe is getting set up. You guys are such troopers for being here so early. So bring your food and we're gonna get started. All right, guys. Like I said, assessments is not the most exciting thing in the world. And we passed the most boring part of it, which is the glossary, the vocabulary, the terms, and all that. For a lot of you, some of these will be review, the formative and summative assessments, but it just helps to kind of know this because when you interview for a job at a school district, sometimes people would ask you, hey, what do you do for formative assessment or check for understanding? Check for understanding is really formative assessment. It's just a way for you to kind of check if your students are getting it or not. So, sometimes these little languages or key terms, they're so important when you go on an interview because it just makes you look like, hey, you're ready for the job instead of saying, excuse me, formative what? Or summative what? Some of these terms are kind of like, hey, why are we covering it again? Okay. Lupe, are you okay? Can you see the Nearpod code? Okay.
I'm just not in my room yet, so I can't join, but I'll join as soon as I get there.
Okay, gotcha. You're listening, so we're gonna get started because I don't want to go past 10:10 because I know you guys need to go somewhere. There's chapel, all that good stuff. So as long as everybody's okay and everybody's ready, then we can get started. All right. So we're gonna go over formative and summative assessments. These are the two key words that you really need, especially when you apply for a school district job, because people are gonna have these buzzwords that you guys need to really know. And it's just good that you guys know it before you even get started. So let's get started. All right. All right, these are my sources. They're getting tiny because I didn't have room. All right, so video. I'm gonna continue the video and I'm gonna adjust the volume. Okay, I sure hope there you go.
This video will explore the formative assessment process. The formative assessment process is used by students and teachers during instruction to adjust teaching and learning strategies to reach their goals. So what is the formative assessment process? Let's start with what it is and what it's not. Formative assessment is a process, not a thing. Even though it includes the word assessment, it's not a final test of what students can do. It is a process that occurs during learning, not after. In other words, formative assessments are assessments for learning, while learning is happening. On the other hand, summative assessments are assessments of learning, after learning has happened. Here's an analogy I like to use. Let's think about Olympic athletes. Before the Olympics, athletes practice. They use feedback from peers, coaches, and their own self-evaluation to improve. This process of checking, evaluating, and adjusting while you are practicing is the formative assessment process in action. Let's explore what this looks like in the classroom. The formative assessment process occurs throughout learning, and it often looks and feels like a classroom activity, discussion, or assignment. When used formatively, classroom activities inform next steps for students and teachers. On the other hand, if used summatively, classroom assignments sum up students' learning. It is important to remember that in order for a quiz or assessment to be formative and not summative, the focus should be on teachers and students using the results to adjust and inform next steps for learning. Let's take a closer look at the formative assessment process. This process involves an ongoing cycle of actions. First, students and teachers clarify the intended learning. This is the goal. Where are we headed and why? Then, they elicit and gather evidence of what students think, know, and can do. Students and teachers interpret the evidence by comparing it to the learning goal. And then they act on the information to move students forward. The process is fluid and informs both student and teacher actions. Let's look at each attribute of the process. The first attribute is to clarify intended learning. We have to start with what we want students to know, understand, and be able to do. What are the learning goals, and how will we know if students have met them? Think about the process you used the last time you put together a puzzle. Did you look at the picture first to know what the puzzle would look like when it was finished? Did you revisit the picture throughout the process as a guide when you got stuck? If we know what the big picture looks like, it can help us put the pieces together. Clarifying the intended learning enables students to understand for themselves what they need to learn and how they know that they've learned it. The second attribute in the formative assessment process is to elicit information about students' thinking. This requires students and teachers to use an assessment lens, meaning they gather information about how students are thinking about a problem, question, or task. Eliciting evidence of student thinking while learning is happening helps students and teachers make the right decisions about how to move forward. How can students and teachers know what they need to do next if they don't know where they are? Evidence can be gathered in many ways. For instance, observing, listening, and questioning students, allowing them to show their thinking through handwritten or computer-based work. Even asking students to perform, draw a picture, or use gestures to show what they are thinking. These are all great ways to find out what your students know so you can support them. The sky's the limit in terms of creatively eliciting information about what students think, know, and can do. The third attribute in the formative assessment process is to interpret information. When you elicit evidence, it's important to interpret that evidence based on the learning goals. This helps you and your students stay focused. It wouldn't work to evaluate a mogul skier's performance based on the criteria you would use for a figure skater. It's important to interpret and evaluate what students know and can do based on the specific learning goals and success criteria. Sometimes interpreting evidence can be hard to recognize because it can happen very quickly in the moment. On other occasions, interpreting evidence requires tools and takes more time. Let's look at an example of interpreting evidence in the moment. When a student answers a question, we immediately try to recognize where they may be struggling with respect to the learning goal. Other times, the interpretation process takes a little longer. For example, we might use a specific rubric to compare a student's performance related to the learning goal. Students can also use rubrics for peer and self-evaluation. The last attribute in the formative assessment process is to act. Now that students know where they're at and where they are going, we can help them get there. Taking action can involve adjusting instruction. For example, reteaching something in a different way, differentiating a learning task, using a new strategy, showing explicit examples or non-examples, altering the sequence of activities or tasks, or modifying the task for students in order to meet them where they are. We can help our students take action by providing them with opportunities to act on the feedback they have received. The formative assessment process is most effective when all 4 attributes are used together and students are fully involved in the process. This process can accelerate learning by identifying and acting on learning gaps in real time. The formative assessment instructional supports, along with the interim and summative assessments, are designed to work together to support high-quality teaching, improve learning for all students, and prepare students for life after high school. We hope this information about the formative assessment process was helpful. Thank you for watching.
Okay. Any question on that? That sort of explains the whole thing, right? What a formative assessment is, and covered a little bit about summative assessment. Do you guys have any questions on formative assessments? No? Oh, hold on. Let me see everybody's face. Oh, I didn't even know I lost Lupe. Oh, hi, Lupe. You made it. Hey.
Hi.
Yeah, whenever you can get in Nearpod, that would be awesome. All right. All right. So no questions at all. Gosh, you guys are good. Yeah. All right. Let me just all right. So Lupe, don't rush. I know internet sometimes kind of get tricky. And it's just a minute activity just to kind of see where you guys are at. This is a type of formative assessment. Hey. All right. So let's get started. All right, let's get started. Okay, Gabby. I saw that yawn, Gabby. I know. I know you're not feeling well. It's so contagious. All right.
I think the big difference between formative and summative assessment is formative happens while you're learning, just to check for understanding, to see if maybe the teacher needs to help you with something. And summative is like a big collective test, so like midterm or final.
Perfect. You said a key word, check for understanding. Sometimes administrators or principals will ask you, what are you doing for checking for understanding? And I'm like, huh? Not my personal experience, but you know, it happens. All right. Next. All right, Jocelyn, take it away. Oh, Jocelyn, we always just kind of recite what we wrote. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay.
Now, because we want to hear your voice.
I said that the difference between these is that one happens during the lesson, which is formative, and the other happens after the lesson. I was speed typing, so I didn't get to say everything I wanted to say, but sums up a lot of what Gabby had said already. And also just that the purpose of the summative is to like be able to have your students understand, like kind of gauge where they're already at, so that you can at the end like fix yourself too.
Yeah, you guys are understanding it really well, so that's awesome. So yeah, formative is during your informing learning, and then summative, those are the nerve-wracking ones, summative assessments. So perfect. Marty.
So I think I got it wrong. I know I did.
No, there's no wrong in this class. This is a formative assessment, so
I mean, it's formative to test what one knows, where summative is what they've learned. So I didn't have the same answers.
That's pretty good. Actually, that's pretty accurate and simple. And I wish the books would have it in that simple way instead of a roundabout way. But yeah, that totally makes sense. You're testing your students, what if they know this and that and that. And then summative is like, what did you learn, right? So yeah, perfect. All right. Last but not least, Lupe.
I just put that a formative assessment is during their learning process, and then a summative assessment is after to see the summarize and what was learned.
Yeah, that makes it so good with that summarize. Yeah, summative totally makes it. It helps you remember that. But thank you. Good job, guys. All right. All right. This is a bullseye. But don't worry about taking notes. You can go back to it later. Bullseye just means that it's going to be on the test. Formative assessment help teachers check if their students are understanding the subject matter. These assessments inform the teachers about their students' understanding of a subject matter. Formative assessments are also referred to as check for understanding assessments. They are informal, yet powerful, because they help teachers determine the effectiveness of their teaching strategies. And I think it's powerful too, because it's so low key that the students don't even know usually that, that it's an assessment, just a discussion here or a group work here. They don't know. They think they're just kind of having fun and learning along the way. But so it's really low key, but this is how the teachers know if somebody is a little behind, if somebody needs to kind of, if you need to take extra time to explain that again with the students. And in the beginning of your school term, when you teach, you start understanding, okay, this kid needs a little help with reading, this kid needs a little help in math. And so that's how you decide where to sit them, right? You sit the shy kid with a really hyper kid, because you need a little balance in that table. Just things like that. You determine who you're going to spend extra time with, which table you should visit more often when they're doing some kind of group work. So formative assessments are super powerful. All right.
Go over your homework, and then on the homework board, I want you to write down any questions that you have that as a group were difficult for you, that you couldn't figure out together. We'll go over those.
Fifth grade teacher Pete Moore used a variety of formative assessment techniques in his math class. His first of 10 formative assessment techniques used in his classroom was the homework help board, where students would write on the board homework problems they need help with.
We have 2 problems that you identified as difficult problems from the homework last night. As I went around, it looked like everybody did a really good job with 7-6 with the line graphs. The other page, 8-1, is where the 2 tricky problems came from.
Formative assessment to me is a way within our everyday classroom to
get a feel on the class and where they are with the objectives for that day, making sure that everyone is at the same spot by the end of the day through different techniques throughout class.
The formative assessment techniques Pete used are the homework help board, popsicle sticks, phone a friend, find the mistake, elbow partners, think, pair, share, Socrative, carousel, best composite, and exit slip.
Anytime I'm going to give a lesson to the students, I want to make sure that I have things lined up and that it's going to be, using the most of our time. So it takes time to put together the Smart Notebook lessons. But the good thing is you can use them, especially with the way we're doing the parallel block. I get to use it with 2 classes. There's something about the location of it. Francesco, you can phone a friend, have somebody else come up. That is a reflection or a flip. Travis, tell us what you did to make it a true reflection.
Lined up like the same amount of space between the stick and the loose stuff.
Yep. The only thing that you didn't have was to have the same amount of space between the bread and the stick. If we look here, what errors do you see on this? Take a minute and talk with your elbow partner. If you have 3 in your group, then talk with all 3. Grace.
So the shading is like messed up, like it's wrong.
Okay.
And then the coordinates are 5, 6, and 6, 5.
Very good. Nicole, what do you think? You're not sure, you're allowed to phone a friend, so you don't have to be nervous. You would say a 4, okay? Is there anybody that disagrees with Nicole? Shannon, what do you think?
I think it's okay because they didn't really explain a lot in how they got there.
The student's explanation of a reflection is insufficient. So they agreed with Shannon that they didn't give enough details. With your group, we're going to do the carousel. You are going to grade. We're going to rotate them clockwise. You're going to grade everyone in your groups. Now listen, I want you to put your initials next to the grade that you give so that you can support what you are giving if the person wants to know why you gave them that score. It's a 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. Go ahead and do that now.
It feels good if they're like, if they got a 4 or they did it all right. But if it's like not, it feels a little bit weird because just writing down like one number and they understand why they got it when we explain why they got the number that they got.
Remember, you have to bring me your best composite answer before you start with the netbooks. If you had seen where we were 2-3 weeks ago with these types of questions, just to see the growth in them and the confidence with which they're answering these questions now. The first time we did questions like this, I was exhausted because there were so many questions flying at me about different things, about how to answer the questions. There were a lot of probably 2s in our responses. And as I walked around today, even before we did the best composite answer, when they were doing individual answers, I saw a lot of 4s and a few 3s mixed in. I don't think I saw any 2s or 1s. So it's very rewarding to me to see that they're giving me a better effort now. And a lot of that has to do, I think, from the techniques that we use in the formative assessment.
All right, guys. Wasn't that fun? I don't know if you remember the popsicle sticks in elementary school. Your name is on a popsicle stick and the teacher holds it up and say, Marty, you are assigned to erase the board. Something like that. Lupe, you're making me hungry and I want coffee like that. All right. So any questions? I can't see you guys, so just kind of speak up if you have any questions. I see some of you, and then I have to push that arrow to see the rest of you, which is really, and I really don't want to see myself. So, what's the point of seeing myself? Okay, so the formative assessment, like the book review table, is kind of like their homework help board. Remember when you made the book review table, there's a section there saying, what don't you understand? Basically, that's just like the homework help board. I want to know what you guys don't understand. And the ones that I've already graded, thank you that you guys filled that out, because then I was able to respond to your question saying, oh, I don't understand how this and that. And so that's kind of like another way of formative assessment for me, because in that chart that you guys submit, you guys get to ask the question and I get to answer it and, go from there. So all kinds of formative assessment that you can do. He talked about phone a friend. That's always good, or elbow partner. Right now, Marty's elbow partner is Lupe, and Jocelyn is Lupe's elbow partner. That's the way I see it, because you guys are not in the classroom. But there's so many ways to just make it so much fun, to make assessments fun, the formative assessments for your students. So hopefully you guys are getting that. It's really an important aspect of teaching, is the formative assessment. More so than summative. Summative is like the teachers are nervous, the students are nervous, the parents are nervous. Formative is just more fun, and it is indeed very powerful. All right. So, bullseye, formative assessment used when the purpose of testing is to inform the instructor about whether the students are learning while the curriculum is being delivered. A couple of you guys say that is during the learning process, which is excellent. All right. Formative assessments are ongoing assessments, reviews, observations in the classroom, popsicle sticks, phone a friend, carousel, think, pair, and share. Teachers use formative assessment to improve instructional methods and provide student feedback throughout the teaching and learning process. For the book review tables, a lot of you still need to work on the skill of paraphrasing. And that's what I want you guys to get out of from this class. But in the second book that we're doing, we're going to do it like I'm going to assign somebody's paper to Gabby, somebody's paper to Marty. And then you guys can look at how this student paraphrased. And then that way you can kind of see. So yeah, that's another formative assessments. Okay. You guys are gonna like breathe and eat formative and summative assessments today. Sorry about that. It's better than glossary.
The following video highlights formative assessment strategies used by teachers from the Blair Mill Elementary School.
All of these animals became involved in the story and all had something that happened because of one small silly little thing that started at the beginning. Those chain of events come down to the same idea as cause and effect.
Third grade teacher Kelly Kazitz used learning intentions and objectives as her formative assessment strategy when teaching cause and effect in a story the students read.
Our learning objective says we are learning to identify examples of cause and effect and display them on the Play-Doh-Rama. This is your job, your objective, also called your learning intention. So this is what, when you are finished with your Play-Doh-Rama, this is what I expect you to be meeting.
Today for my formative assessment activity, we did learning intentions, learning objectives, and created a success criteria list. This is formative because it really gives the children exact understanding of what their objective is and what their goal is for the lesson, what they're to be learning.
Kelly's students were required to come up with 4 examples of cause and effect and write them on the paper. They could use the book as a resource. Her success criteria specifically outlined what was essential for the completion of the exercise.
Success criteria is wonderful because it really shows them what they need to be checking and what they need to be accomplishing in order to meet their objective. We have found it really successful in our classroom because it really gives the students an idea of what exactly they need to be working on, what exactly my expectations are, and what their final result should look like. It's been very beneficial in our classroom.
All right, it's an 18-minute video. If you guys have time at home and get popcorn with that, go for it. But I am not going to make you suffer with an 18-minute video, especially that I see Gabby yawning. Ah, hurts. Anyways, formative assessment. For example, if a teacher observes that some students do not grasp a concept, he or she can design a review activity to reinforce the concept, or use a different instructional strategy to reteach it. The whole point of teaching is adjusting it according to your students' needs. It's not a matter of, I got to get through these learning objectives by next week. None of that. That's called the teacher-centered teaching. It's got to be student-centered because you are looking out for your students. You are adjusting your lessons because that's how you convey the lessons to your students. You constantly adjust your lessons. If your students are feeling kind of really getting kind of drawn out their energy from fractions, bring some utensils from your kitchen. Bring pots and pans and show fractions through measuring little ingredients here and there. Sometimes it's not just the blackboard that's going to help you teach or convey the lesson. Sometimes you have to bring things, but you really have to like look at your students and see, because if they're getting bored or they're getting kind of really worn out, change it. Switch it, go outside, go for one walk. I'll walk through the garden and stuff and come back and reteach it again. So that's adjusting your instructional strategy. All right. Likewise, students can monitor their progress by looking at the results on periodic quizzes and performance tasks. The results of formative assessments are used to modify and validate instruction. Okay. All right. Come on.
Savvy teachers assess student knowledge every day, every few minutes, in every content area. Teachers call this checking for understanding.
Checking for understanding actually is something that goes on continuously in the class. It's not just tests or something that sums up at the end of an activity.
And it's not just the first day, the pre-assessment. We get an idea of where they are and how much work or how much focus we have to put on certain aspects.
Then I'll adjust how much I need to emphasize, or if there's a particular concept, I can't just push forward unless my students understand. I'll lose them.
Effective teachers use a variety of approaches to check for understanding. This information helps them identify gaps in student learning, as well as areas where students exceed expectations.
In Japanese, there's always so many things we do activity-wise that when you know it, you absolutely know that you know it because you're able to go through and understand what's happening. And when you don't know it, you also know because you feel pretty lost, and that this is a different language from most others, and that you can't really fake it. Either you know it or you don't.
Usually when they're doing it correct, they see a smile, a light bulb goes off, and they're real excited about it. And that's how I know they're understanding.
When you're teaching a language, the first nonverbal cue is just silence. If the students say nothing, then usually it's because they're not sure what to say or they just don't know how to say it. I was kind of doing two things at once. I was passing out papers, but I was also, okay, how far have we gotten? 5 minutes have passed. Who's almost done?
Informed teachers adjust their instruction based on student feedback, visual, verbal, and nonverbal cues.
Really checking out who's struggling and who's not. Is the feedback that nobody is able to answer the question, or is the feedback that only half of the students are able to answer the question, or everybody is answering the question?
When they're not understanding or don't really get it, then they get this kind of puzzled look and like, I'm not sure, they'll get a frustration.
So instead of just plodding along in the same activity, we'll stop there, we'll do some more drills, maybe pull out the vocabulary that they need.
Una tarjeta azul.
Quality instruction and assessment involves student interaction, choice, and structure.
I think one that we used today that was real helpful was like the flip cards, because then, I mean, you got a chance to like see if you got it right immediately, and if you got it wrong, you got an explanation as to why you got it wrong, so you wouldn't make that mistake again.
Like something's flowing, like imperfect, you would think of water, so you use blue, and red is like preterite, which means it only happened once, so it's like you'll remember like the colors by colors.
Okay, listos.
clickers help because it's like a different way to learn the same thing. If you're into that kind of learning, it helps you a little bit differently.
So elbow is in front. And what's the last one?
Follow through. They like ask us questions to make sure we understand it, and like if they'll like teach us more if we don't.
Peer-to-peer evaluation is another strategy to check for understanding.
The students are checking for understanding with each other as a peer evaluation, which is standard 2, benchmark 1, and then the indicator is 2, where they have to work with each other and say, okay, practice, how does good practice help them improve?
The peer evaluation, I decided to do that because obviously we have to communicate with people every day, and you get constructive criticism when you get a job and you get older. And it's something that kids need to learn now so they can be accustomed to it, because otherwise, if they don't have that feedback or that dialogue back and forth with others, then they're going to take it personally.
For some teachers, the process of checking for understanding is natural. It's looking for cues, asking the right questions, listening attentively, and waiting patiently for students to respond. For other teachers, it's a learned craft, honed over time to meet the needs of all students.
Well, it's important to train these teachers because, like, if they're trained and they know what to do, then that will reflect on our grades because they know what we're doing, and then we'll know what we're doing because they're doing a good job, so we'll do a good job.
All right. Any questions on that? No? All right. Okay, so as I was watching it, and that's also my suggestion, is to kind of grab some keywords from these movies or videos. One keyword is continuously. Formative is continuous, it's ongoing, it's pretty much all day long. And adjusting, like I said, adjust your instruction according to how your students are receiving your lessons. And gaps, then you kind of see if there's any gaps there in their understanding. If there's students that are struggling with it, that you need kind of extra time on that table. Exceed expectations. If they're exceeding expectations, then yeah, it's time to move on to the next lesson. And then the peer-to-peer, that's always important. That's part of the social and emotional learning that you guys learned last semester. Because if they're able to critique each other with respect and accept other people's critiques, then yeah, you are teaching them. Not only is it a formative assessment, it's also that you're teaching them to grow up, to mature. So then we go to summative assessments. Kind of not as fun, but you know, it has to happen. Summative assessments are typically used to evaluate effectiveness of instructional programs and services at the end of academic year or at a predetermined time. Like at LPU, we have midterms, we have finals. Those are summative assessments. There's a lot of weight on those tests, so it really affects the students' outcome or final grade in their classes or grade levels. The goal of summative assessment is to judge student competency after an instructional phase is complete. So that means it's not just midterm or final assignments or final projects. You know, if you remember the unit test that you guys take in elementary, like unit 1, unit 2, or chapter tests, or sometimes the teachers combine units 1 to 3. It's kind of like a midterm when they do that. But all right. Summative, used when the purpose of testing is to evaluate the extent of student achievement after some period of instruction. So the key word there is after, not during. Okay. All right. We are getting into summative.
One of the things that comes up when you get into a differentiated class, let alone one that's standards based, is you have to begin to weigh formative versus summative assessment. Now, summative assessment is actually anticlimactic. It really refers to post-learning, after all is said and done. So it's a final declaration. Usually there's not a lot of capacity to go back and revise one's efforts and be assessed and accredited anew. But one thing that teachers forget is that something that was intended to be summative, child does poorly for whatever reason, you're allowed to make it a formative assessment. Something that was summative now becomes formative. That's actually okay. It's within your prerogative. But what about formative assessment? Well, of the two, teachers tend to spend the majority of their time designing their summative assessments, as if that was the most important aspect. But really, it's formative assessment. That's the most important aspect. It has the greatest impact on student achievement, on feedback to the teacher, everything. The whole enterprise of teaching and learning really boils down to that formative assessment. Can kids learn without grades? Yeah. Can they learn without formative assessment and the feedback that comes from it? Not at all. So we want to emphasize that. In fact, I would suggest that teachers spend at least the same amount of time, if not more, designing formative assessment instead of summative assessment. But what is this formative assessment? Well, formative assessment obviously is the ongoing assessment. It's the checkpoints along the way. But here's the kicker. The best formative assessment actually involves descriptive feedback. Not just, hey, thank you for finishing on time. No, it was you had your supplies, you're able to do this and this and this, and that helps all of us. It's kind of like Jim Fay and his Love and Logic books, Point and Describe. National Association of Secondary School Principals and many other folks who are into assessment talk about three aspects of descriptive feedback. You help the kid discover, or you point it out yourself, what was the goal, what was the original intent, the objective, where are you in relation to it, and what are we going to do to close that gap? Three different parts of good descriptive feedback. When a kid can take that and use it, we find that formative assessment is any assessment that's done where the kid is allowed to revise his efforts in light of that feedback and then be assessed and accredited anew. Perhaps there's some relearning in there as well, but it's ongoing, and that's the focus. If our focus is summative assessment, students don't learn as well. Dylan William, one of the great researchers in this, he did this wonderful manifesto, Inside the Black Box, with Paul Black. And man, it turned America on its ear. In 1998, we started looking at formative assessment and started transforming schools. So how do we give feedback to kids? Is there formative assessment in my lesson plans? In great lessons, I should be able to circle the formal formative assessment and feedback going to students. There's also informal, where you observe, maybe get some feedback right there in the spur of the moment. But I should see lots of checks for understanding and kids getting that feedback. In fact, Bob Marzano and many others talk about the effect size, the impact of some decision. And it turns out the effect is much greater if you do an assessment and there's going to be descriptive feedback. If there's no feedback, it turns out the assessment, the tasks, the assignments don't have much instructional value compared to when there's feedback. So in the same planning breath, as I design my assessment, I'm going to design how will students get feedback on this and how will it inform my lessons. In fact, I should be able to walk down a hallway and stop a teacher cold. They don't know I'm coming. They don't know the question's coming, and say, how did formative assessment inform one of your decisions today or this week with a student, a subset of students, or a class? And the teacher should feel very comfortable. I found out this about these students. I decided to do that. That's one of the big pillars of differentiated instruction. And it turns out classrooms where teachers focus on formative assessment, test scores go up if you use that as an indicator. But really, mastery, student achievement, it all goes up. And again, I wonder, what goes unlearned because a teacher didn't get into, didn't understand, didn't apply formative assessment principles?
All right, it's that important, right? So yeah, expect to be observed in your classrooms, especially principals. They will observe your classrooms and they will check how you check for understanding or your formative assessments. A little bit on that video clip. It's true, a lot of teachers and even professors, they spend so much time with a summative assessment that they need to spend more time with a formative assessment. So that's just something that that I want you guys to bring with you, especially after you graduate. Have descriptive feedback, whether it's written or verbal or yeah, like the guy said, hey, you brought your school supplies, or hey, I think it was like last semester or a year back. Hey, you put a title page on your APA paper, things like that. It really, they remember it. They remember, oh, now I have to put a title page. All right, so this is a table of the difference between formative and summative assessment. There's a bullseye behind it. You can go back to it later on. I will post it, and we'll go from there. We talked about the purpose. We talked about when you do formative assessment, how do you use the results, and how do teachers use the results. So let me know if you have questions. Turn your mic on or raise your hand, or yeah. All right. See, Gabby had a little preview of this on formative assessment last week. So Gabby, by the way, showed up all by herself last week. So she's a trooper. And she wasn't feeling well already back then, and she's not feeling well now. So she's a super trooper. Anyways, here's a collaboration board. The whole idea is, think of formative assessments. You can be funny, you can be profound, you can be deep, you could just put words, you could put images, all kinds of stuff. As I was telling Gabby last time, if you guys remember Lani Mafucci, she took assessments before you guys took assessments. And I asked something like that. We were using their Google Docs, so there's jiffies there. I'm not gonna have you do Google Docs. I'm just gonna have you use this. But she put a picture of the Friends cast, hugging each other. So I'm like, I'm a little baffled. It's like, Lani, how come they're hugging? And what is this picture? Why is it formative? Oh, it's group work. All right, it's group work. That's why the friends were hugging. So yeah, that is formative assessment. So think of, it could be way out there as far as formative assessment. It could be a Simpson, a picture of Bart Simpson, doing things that is like a formative assessment. Just be creative and fill out this board with what you think depicts formative assessment. All right. I forgot how many minutes I gave you guys on this. So there you go. Write or add images of the different formative assessments that you've participated in. Explore games or activities that your teachers use to test your knowledge without the formality of scores or grades. A little different than last week, Gabby, but it's just as fun. I mentioned popsicle sticks. These are some of the keywords that maybe you will look, or you could just look at keywords for images for a formative assessment. You can look for check for understanding. You can look think, pair, share, carousel. What did he say? Elbow, peer review, just something. Just, yeah. All right. I'm excited. I don't know if I put a time on this. Did I? Okay, no, I didn't. So I'm just kind of give you another minute. Well, maybe not a minute. We're running out of time. Oh, wait, I'm on slide 19 out of 21. Right on. Good planning, Mrs. Kropf. It could also be how you feel about it. So I'm going to give you half a minute. I'm going to get my crying dog, take him inside, all right? I'll be right back. He's crying because he misses me. He's having anxiety, separation anxiety. Okay, guys, come on. I'm having a class. Come on. All right, when you guys are done, just click on submit. I think it's submit. All right. Hopefully I got everybody's. Going once, twice. Oops, not yet. Sorry. Marty, I love your cat.
Thank you. She keeps climbing up my leg. I have to hold.
Isn't online learning fun? All right. Did you guys submit your answers? Oh my gosh, I'm not getting any posts for some reason.
Mine says that it's pending approval.
Oh, really? Oh.
Mine too.
Okay, let me do this. Pending approval? I've never seen such a thing. All right. Sorry, my dogs are so noisy. Oh my gosh. All right, let me see what's going on here. I've never had this issue before. Time. Nope. Oh man. All right. Oops. I don't want to add images. Popsicle. Oh, you guys. Oh my gosh, this is making me hungry. All right. I never had it that I have to like post something, you know? So sorry guys, that was a failure on my part. I'll look at reports later. Let's see. Let me, I can't end this. Yeah, I'll look at it later. Okay, hold on. Sorry. Oh man, I was looking forward to this activity. All right. Hopefully the summative is different. This slide is a collaborate board. Would you like to approve? Oh, okay, there you go. All right. I'll let you guys do this and I'm gonna go back to formative later because I couldn't wait to see your creativity.
My Nearpod's not.
Oh,
it won't.
Oh. Okay, I have 3 answers. Is that you, Marty?
No, I haven't been able to do it. It's loading.
Oh, okay. All right, I'll give it a couple of seconds and I'm gonna investigate the other issue that we have. BRGSM. All right, let me know, Marty, because then I'll see a 4 in there.
It's still loading. I don't know when to load.
All right. I'm sorry. I wanted you to have fun with this. All right. Lupe, oh my God, those Scantron tests. Oh, AP testing. Jocelyn. Oh, okay. Jocelyn, Yeah, I like that because that depicts the true emotion of summative assessment. Marty, if you find a picture somewhere, I can let you share the screen, especially if it's profoundly funny like Jocelyn's.
It's okay. I'm pretty. Those are okay. I would have chosen the same thing. But
all right, let me see what happened to the. Okay, now I see it. I went back to formative, and now it registered it. Okay, Jocelyn. Yep, group hug again. Thank you very much. I participated in a lot of group work and open sharing activities. I have used Sticks, Buddy System, group grading, and a few others myself. Lupe, yes, teacher help. Yeah, I love that stoplight. Marty, I have participated in group work and peer reviews. I feel like it's a good thing to be able to ask class. I should let you say it. I know. I have this talking thing. Like I have to talk every time. Gabby, to test understanding of spelling, my teacher would have a spelling bee. I love those spelling bees. Yep. Thank you for sharing that one. And I apologize, Marty, that you weren't able to do the summative, but I could just imagine the profoundness of your creativity. And yeah, so are you there? There you go. All right, she's out. Well, she's muted. Okay. All right, you guys. Oh, there's a new one. There's a Valentine's one, guys. All right, this is exciting. Marty, welcome back. Are you okay?
yeah, it keeps freezing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's unstable. I keep cutting.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Technology is amazing, but sometimes it's just so annoying. All right. I take it we're going to Valentine's. Any votes? Okay. Lupe says yes. And okay, Gabby said yes. 2 out of 4 is half. All right. I don't see any contradictions to that. So, and Gabby, you gotta stop yawning or else you can't do well in this time to climb thing. All right. So we're gonna do Valentine's. And there you go. It's so cute. It's got a cupcake. Gabby.
My thing's not loading again. Oh, wait, never mind.
I've never seen a giraffe character before. I loved your. Oh, Marty, I'm so glad you made it. Okay, who are we missing? Are we missing anybody? It's just us, right? I'm like, all right, let's get started. see your number 1 face. Woohoo! All right, Gabby number 2, Lupe number 3, and Marty number 4. You guys are all awesome anyway. So great job, guys. Any questions? Your next book review table, I believe, is the 5th. So I am going to capture this because I'm just such a mom, you know. I just like to capture all kinds of pictures. There you go. We are in week 3, day 1 scores. All right, guys. Let's see. I think that is it. That is it. 21 out of 20. I didn't put a that's all folks slide. So forgive me for that. But I will see you guys on Friday. Thank you for coming. Next time, give me coffee, Lupe, all right? And no more yawning, Gabby. But get some rest. I know you're sick. So, all right, guys. Take care. God bless you. I saw that.
Thank you, Professor.